Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first show of Kristina's Careers Hour. It feels a little bit weird to have my name on something that's kind of going out on Twitter and has got lots of people coming to. So thank you so much for signing up, and we really hope that you find this useful. So a bit about my background quickly and a bit about how this show came to being. So I'm a careers advisor. I work with lots of different schools across the county, and my business Finding Futures also brings out a termly careers magazine for students aged 15 to 18 as well. So along with Digital Northampton, we wanted to bring you kind of a platform where we could give you information about the digital sector in general and the different roles available within that, but also what's available locally, and kind of shout about some of the great things that are going on locally within digital careers. So a couple of housekeeping bits before we begin. So if you could keep your mics and your webcams off, if you've signed in under your first name and last name, if you could just sign back out and sign in under a different name, just so everything's anonymous. And as Richard mentioned, if you want to ask a question to one of our panellists as kind of they're talking and giving you information, just pop that into the Q&A box. As mentioned as well, if you want it to just go to the panellists, you can leave it as is. But if you want everyone to see it, then you need to just click on everyone instead of all panellists when typing a question in. So, without further ado, let's introduce our guests for today's show. We have Claire, who is Head of Computing and IT at Wrenn School in Wellingborough. And we've got Iain, who is Head of Games Design from the University of Northampton. So what I'll do is, Claire, Iain, if you're happy for me to, I'll ask you guys some questions for both of you at first, and we'll go from there. Yeah, okay. Brilliant. Okay, so what is the Head of Computing and IT? What does your role look like, Claire, in school? What do you do?
So I'm not just the head of computing at my school, but I'm also a digital schoolhouse leader and a community leader. So I help train up the teachers in the area as well, so then they can get the most up-to-date information about what's going on in our sector in computer science and how we can deliver that to the students in our schools in Northamptonshire.
Amazing, thank you. And Iain, would you like to explain a bit about your role in the university and what that's like?
Yeah, I've got a few roles. Okay, so as you quite correctly mentioned, I'm the course leader for games design, but I actually teach on games art because that's what my career was before I was a lecturer. I used to work in video games industry.
That sounds very interesting.
And then on top of that, I help with Digital Northampton, etc.
Amazing, brilliant. And if you don't mind me asking, what was your kind of pathway towards the role that you're in now? Did you follow a traditional sort of pathway? Did you go to university yourself? What did that look like for you?
My pathway to working in the games industry was a long time ago, right? So they didn't really have games courses at that time. I ended up, my degree was in fine art. So because I had an interest in art and could draw and was creative, I started badgering a local games company near to where I lived called Rebellion, and I kept badgering them, and I sent them emails and saying, look, I'm really creative, can I come and see you? And eventually they just thought, oh God, he's not going to go away, is he? So they let me come up and speak to them, and I had an interview with them, and they, they looked through my fine artwork, and they said, well, look, it's clear that you're really enthusiastic and you're really creative. Do you want to come and work for us for 2 weeks for free to see if we can do anything with you? This is like 2001, right?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, sure, okay. And they said, do you want to come back on Monday? And I said, well, I'm already here now. Can I just stay? And I did. I stayed from that afternoon, and I was there for about 2 years, learning how to make video games as I actually generated money. At the end of the 2 weeks, they were more than happy to start me off as an employee.
Amazing.
So I made it a total like that on a flip from being like a drawer and a painter to using the same tools but digitally.
Yeah, so that background obviously helped you kind of get into that sort of area, didn't it?
Yeah, and my passion to not go and work at that time in insurance, which is what everyone else from my fine art degree was going to go and do. I knew
very unrelated.
Well, that was one of the big employers in that area for graduates. you know, so even people who are graduating from fine art were getting sucked up into insurance. And I thought, there's no way on this planet that fits the kind of thing I want to do. And
Yeah.
I loved video games, and I thought, I have to find a way of doing that.
Sounds brilliant. Yeah, thank you. And Claire, what about you? How did you kind of end up in the position that you're in today? Did you follow a traditional route, or was it slightly different for you as well?
I had my plan at the age of 7 that I always wanted to be a teacher, but obviously did sort of A-levels at the time. Computer science wasn't even on the curriculum, so a lot of it was IT. So I didn't actually hit the computer science world until university, but
Right.
similar to Iain, I did graphic design as well, which then linked into my passion of playing computer games and creating computer game like sort of layouts and backgrounds and things like that. Then once finished my degree in computing, I then pretty much my mum said, you just need to get a job, just get any job and then find out what you want to do later. So literally I worked in Sainsbury's for 3 years before I decided what I wanted to do. And then I became a Moodle developer, first of all, because I wanted to put my degree programming to some use, and then diverted back to being a teacher and teaching the programming.
Amazing. So you've had quite an eclectic mix of experience there. And it's obviously all useful and all helped you in different ways, which is brilliant. And what kind of advice would you give your younger self if you were to go back and kind of do all that again? Would you follow the same sort of path, or would you perhaps do anything differently?
Well, my path changed because of 2 GCSEs. I didn't get my science or maths first time. I wasn't the brightest in those subjects, shall we say, and I had to retake those. So I would say to my younger self, it doesn't matter if you don't get it first time, just pick yourself up and go for it again. And I'm a big believer in fate. If it's meant to be, it will happen. Yeah,
definitely. And Iain, what kind of advice would you give your younger self? Would you kind of still stick to the original degree that you've done? Would you do anything differently at school? What do you think that you would say to your 16-year-old self?
I was never very academic at school. I didn't really get on that well with the environment. So I would go back in time and I'd say very similar to what Claire said, just how, you know, have some faith. People mature at different speeds and they find their passions at different times. And, you know, there are requirements, right? There's always government requirements that you're going to pass GCSEs in English and maths, etc. Okay, some of those things you can't avoid. You just have to suck them up and do them. But other things like choosing a career, you know, once you find something that you're passionate in, it can fall into place at 18, it can fall into place at 25. There's plenty of careers where you're not over and done with by the time you're, you know, 30.
And that's the thing, isn't it? You want to be spending your time and spending your life on something that you are passionate about and something that you care about and something that you have enthusiasm for, because your working life is such a long time that you do want it to be in something that you really love doing. So you're both great examples of that, actually, which is fantastic.
If you're not passionate about it, right, you're going to spend you'll spend more time at work than you will with your family.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not passionate or at least invested in some way, in some significant way in the thing that you're doing, you'll just do a rubbish job and you'll hate it and be miserable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So find something that sings, makes your heart sing, and just go for it. You know, that's why now people are successful esporters, right? Because they found something that they can excel at. You know, even the most, you know, there's people out there. No one ever told me, right, when I was a kid that, and this is going to sound bonkers, but no one ever told me when I was a kid that if I wanted to, I could go and make spoons or, you know, chairs or curtains. There's 1,000 million different wonderful things out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally find as a career, but there's, you know, you've just got to find something that you really are totally into and go for it.
Absolutely, and you're right in saying that might be at 16, it might be at kind of 26, it might be at 40. You just don't know unless you try and find out exactly what is out there and what actually is your passion. So things like this hopefully will really help the students listening, because they'll find out more about the careers which perhaps aren't quite as traditional or are slightly different and they may not have heard of through school. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some students really interested in kind of the gaming kind of sector after this. So let's move forward. So I think what we'll do is, Iain, I'll ask you some questions about your kind of specific role and things like that first, and then we'll chat a bit more to Claire in a little while.
Okay.
So could you, Iain, tell us a little bit more about the course that you run at the university? So you mentioned that you teach on games art, but you're also the course leader for games design. Could you tell us a bit more about the difference between the two and what sorts of things set them apart?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you a little brief overview of a few of the strands. So there's games art, games programming, and games design. Right?
Okay.
So games art is making all the pretty stuff. It's the menu design, it's the characters, it's the environments, it's 2D, it's 3D.
Yeah.
Programming is all the technical skills behind the scenes that make it all work. You know, making all those characters interact, making all the gameplay work, making the front ends and the back ends, making sure it works on different platforms, etc. And design is kind of coming up with the whole architecture for the whole thing. How is it going to work? How do the players interact? What are the reward systems, etc.? What is the basic premise of the game? And those three things work together. But quite often they're sort of very different types of people. So the artists are quite creative. Well, they're all really creative roles, right? But the artists are into drawing and modeling, etc. And the coders are very practical and they're into sort of really logical stuff and code. And the designers, they've got to bridge both. They've got to talk both sets of language, right? So they can have an understanding of what the programmers are on about and what they need. And they've got to have an understanding about what the artists are on about and what they need. And they've got to have an understanding about what the players need and so on, right? So we've developed 3 programs to sort of fit that together. There are multiple different avenues that you can get into the games industry, right? These are just 3 of them.
Yeah. So presumably those 3 ones there are kind of, if you were to create a game from scratch, those are the 3 kind of main areas that you would need to look at when kind of
exactly
going into a job or hiring a team.
Exactly. You'd need to be able to design a product, you'd need to be able to program it, and you'd need to be able to make it look like something.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. So do you find that your students are kind of from more local areas, or do they come from further afield? What sort of students?
Well, we have students from all over the world, but predominantly our students are from Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
Yeah, a large bulk of our students are from Northamptonshire. They come from the college, they come from schools. But yeah, we do have students who are worldwide, European students and students from the East.
Brilliant. Okay, and why is it you think that they choose to come onto the course then?
Oh, because we're amazing.
What's the big USP? Well, obviously, what's the big kind of the draw for them?
Well, that's a good question. We have open days, and a lot of the students get to come and speak to us in person.
Yeah.
And see, because we show them the work that previous students have done. And once they see the quality of the graduates, they get a better understanding of, okay, you know, this journey has got real potential here.
Of where they can go with it, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's where what it comes down to is actually being able to kind of make that connection that, yeah, Northampton, you know, I may live in Northampton, there are games industry courses all over the country, but actually if I go to the university here, I can see the quality of work. It's here on my doorstep. It's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. I'm not going to be a million miles away from my family, you know, and that really
of benefits to it. Yeah, definitely.
That's really appealing to some. And I totally understand. It's a really big step going to university. You know, you can, especially if you're half the way across the country or even the world.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to consider when it comes to making that step to going to university. Not only where, but why, and which course and where in the country. So there's lots and lots of information that needs to be taken into consideration. When you're thinking about students that come onto the course, what kind of skills are you looking for in those students, in particular for the course that you run?
when we interview, we look for passion, right? That thing I was talking about before. I would look that there are tutorials all over the internet on various elements of game design or games art or games programming, right? And the students that come to us, and they may not have succeeded quite as well as they hoped to succeed at school, etc.
Okay.
I've still got a chance. They've still got a total chance. We have a foundation year, right, to bring them up to speed, but also we can look at them as staff, and if they can present us a portfolio that shows they're seriously intending on doing the subject, you know, because they've tried online tutorials, they know they know how some of this works. It matters so much. That is gold dust to us.
Yeah, so the main kind of thing that you want to see is that they're committed and that they are really passionate about the subject, and if they've done kind of their own thing. So you mentioned their portfolio. Is that particularly important when applying for the course?
It's very, very important. Yeah, it's, you know, to be able to see that somebody who's coming to us, for example, on the art program, hasn't just plucked art out of thin air as a whim, because it's much harder to teach you from zero skills, right up to the end, right? And we do that. We do make allowances for that, but predominantly we would like to see students that have already got some level of expectation, you know, some expertise, some commitment that they've shown privately, as well as maybe in their kind of schoolwork.
Yeah.
And then we can talk to them as well. It's really, really helpful at a university sort of interview to have something in front of you that you can talk to us about, right? Because if you're really nervous and you don't do interviews very well, and for many people it's their first ever interview, this prop in front of you is a focal point away from you, so you don't have to be nervous. Your work can talk for you, and we can ask you questions and we can look through it. You know, and it's a beautiful thing to help you on your way, right?
Yeah, and actually, I suppose the beauty of having a portfolio is kind of being able to reflect upon how far you've come, whether that's from kind of GCSE to A level, or whether that's something that you keep on whilst you're at university. So that's all good stuff, really, isn't it? And particularly when you're thinking about applying to university, anything that sets you aside from other students, or shows that passion or enthusiasm, is really important. No matter what career you're going into. So all the more important to show it.
We are here because we want students to get into this career, right?
Yeah.
And absolutely, it comes down to passion and enthusiasm and interest, and you have to have that and show that.
Are there any other particular skills that you think are particularly useful in your line of work? So, I don't know, is it worth students having a look around their skills and seeing whether they are good at things like teamwork, communication, problem solving? Are there any of those that particularly stand out to you when thinking about kind of games design as a career?
It's a very broad career, and it works in very many different ways, right? So you'll be expected to work on a team with other people. So you should be able to communicate. But at the same time, day in, day out, when you're just sat there and you've got a task to do, you know, a big chunk of coding, a load of design, or a load of models to make, you've got your headphones on, you're there, you're doing it. You might be doing it for an hour and a half without realizing, you know, and you've just been there. So ability to focus, ability to work on your own, but at the same time, the ability to take those headphones off and just go up to somebody and just going, look, I'm really, you know, this bit's really, can we just talk about this bit? I'm struggling with this bit, or, you know, so to be able to talk and to share and to work as a team is essential, but also to just be left in silence, to just get on with it with your earphones on.
Yeah, because I think there's a misconception about roles within computing and kind of games sometimes in particular as well, that it is very much a thing that you just put your headphones on and crack on with by yourself. But actually there's a lot of kind of teamwork involved, isn't there, in order to make sure that's produced with good quality. So yeah, all those sorts of skills are really important as well. What sorts of jobs do people mainly go into after they've left the course? What kind of roles have your old students gone into?
Well, we have students that have gone to work for many large games companies in the UK. We have students that have gone on to work for architects, because architects use the 3D software. We've got students that are going off to work for simulation companies. The coders can take their coding skills almost anywhere. I'm talking specifically about the artists here. The designers, well, we've yet to have a cohort of designers that finish, because that's a new program.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the industry in general, and actually, if you choose to do a games design course at university, doesn't necessarily mean that you will just be working in games design, does it? Because the industry is kind of widening, and like you mentioned before about if you're a coder, you can go on to do lots of different things. Maybe just mention a few of those things for us. So what kind of different areas can you go into that aren't particularly games, but with a games background?
Media. I used to work for a media company. So we use the game engine, the Unity game engine, to produce VR products. But also, because we weren't necessarily games focused at this particular point, we also used them to produce heritage projects. So we were working with historians to recreate ancient sort of churches and things like that, so people could actually visualize and see these spaces recreated. The skills that our art skills can go onto TV, can go anywhere. There's VR, there's AR. It even works back now in the fine art phase. You can take those skills back into fine art. Galleries are looking for innovative use of VR and innovative use of AR. All those skill sets and modeling, 3D modeling, you can end up making miniatures. We have a dialogue with the company that makes Warhammer. They are looking for people to make little tiny miniatures.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting, because although you kind of complete a games design course, actually there's so many doors that have opened up for you as a result, because of the skill set that you've kind of got through that course. So it just means that there's even more doors open to those students if they choose to pursue kind of that.
And one of the significant points of university, one of the our reasons for existing, is not just to train students to become games developers, and that's the end of their life. That's it. Until it's creative thinking, it's problem solving, it's a broader set of skills that should make you employable across a whole range of different industries.
Particularly because particularly because the digital sector is growing and is massively coming up with new roles and new pathways and new technologies all the time. So the more that you can be involved with that and the more experience you have in that, the better, really, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just wanted to ask you as well, Iain, aside from university, what other pathways do you know of that you can take into gaming careers? So, for example, if you wanted to be a games designer, is there any other pathway that you can take?
There is. You can. If you can find a games company nearby, you can get into games design, all the games industry in general, from testing. Testing is a really good way in. If you're going to go, but if you're not going to go via university and go straight into a specific job role, then you go into testing, you learn how it works there, you work your way up through Q&A, and then when you're in the company, you can show them, again, because you've done tutorials online, how well you've learned how to model, or how well you've learned how to do programming, or how well you've learned how to do games design from all the things that you've learned at their company. And you can progress internally from that. And testing is generally open to quite a broad range of people. It means that you're going to be doing the same thing day after day after day, testing the same bits of track, whatever, bug fixing, just logging bugs. But it's it's the foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important for some of the students that are listening that might be thinking, actually, I don't I'm not interested in university, that's not kind of how I learn best, that's not where I want to go. And it's good for them to know that there are actually different pathways into the career, without actually having to go into university. So I mean, that's brilliant. And do you know of any companies locally that offer anything like that? Well, are there any apprenticeships available?
Not in that sense, not using the word apprenticeship. Codemasters, Leamington Spa. I used to work there as a vehicle artist, making tanks and APCs. And then a new member joined our team, and he'd been originally a games tester with Codemasters for about a year and a half, but he'd shown them his passion for making vehicles. So he ended up making vehicles on our team.
Amazing.
He is now like the head of kind of vehicle art at Wargaming.
Amazing. Yeah. So like you say, it's just about getting that foot in the door, isn't it? And about kind of showing yourself for what you can do, and taking it from there, really.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
The onus really is on you as an individual to follow your passion and to show you can do something, and to really embrace it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Iain. What we'll do is I will go over to Claire now and ask her a few questions, and then we'll bring you back in at the end for a bit of a discussion.
I'll turn my camera off.
All right, thank you, Iain. Thank you so much. So Claire,
hello.
Thinking a bit about kind of students when they are at school, what kind of reasons do you think that students choose kind of computing for their GCSEs? What sorts of conversations have you had with students in the past about their reasoning for that?
The number one reason whenever I'm doing like an options evening with the students is that my mum and dad told me that I must do computer science. So then you've got to sort of dig down further into, okay, what would you like to do? Because some students are given options, some are getting very like sort of narrowed options depending on their pathways that the school provide them. I'd say with computer science, it does open a lot more pathways if you like learning about how a computer works rather than using the products that are on the computer. Because with there's a difference between computer science and IT that not many people are aware of. Then some students, they want to go on to do a degree at university. Some people have helped students get into apprenticeships as well within a company that works in their sort of IT department as well. And just having that computer science as a backup has also helped.
Yeah, so it provides a bit of kind of background knowledge and a bit of a starting point really for a bit of a springboard into, in this case, a career in gaming. So I know that we were going to talk about esports as well, and I know that you have information about esports. You've kind of been involved with different things to do with esports. So I'm really interested to know kind of where, if it does, fit into the curriculum, into the computing curriculum, or what experience of esports students get at school to kind of hone that interest.
Yeah, I would say that esports in the curriculum can be used as an add-on. We certainly at our school, Wrenn School, are going to integrate it at sixth form initially, and only because there is qualifications that are available that I'm going to go into a little bit later on that are worth UCAS points as well, and they have to not only just play games but to set up an actual tournament, so it's not just playing computer games. And it's our role as it's not just to educate the children in English, maths and science and their other option subjects, but also give them a foundation that they can leave school and they have many doors open to them rather than just a narrow. And to put this into perspective, 81% of children play some form of video games, whether that is on console or whether that's on PC. And this industry will grow by $180 billion by 2021.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you think of how common gaming actually is, also the growth that it can see and the growth that it will see as well. So for those that have kind of tuned into this and aren't really 100% sure what esports is, could you kind of do your best to sort of explain exactly what it is and what the jobs that are available around it are?
Sure. So esports is not just about playing computer games. It's about attending a almost like big LAN event where people get together, you socialise, you communicate, you're in a team, and you are working together in order to compete against other teams, like any other sport that you may see on the TV. Esports is exactly the same, but around a computer game. The types of jobs available each year, the esports industry, the jobs that are available rise by 163% each year.
Wow,
massive. Yeah, so by building some sort of esports competition in school, like I run two at Wrenn School, it gives a child a foundation of we're building them for a career that may not even be sort of invented yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they've got that knowledge, that extracurricular almost experience before they've even gone into sort of left school into the wider world. To give you an idea, because a lot of people, like if I said this to my mum and dad, even if I said, "Oh, I want to be an esports mum," it's like, well, no, you're not just playing computer games for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it, for parents to maybe get their heads around actually what is available and how it is a viable option and exactly why.
Some of the.
Sorry, carry on.
That's all right. And some of the jobs that are available are similar to traditional sports that we'd see on the TV as well. So we've got commentators, we've got events managers, journalists, content creators, we've got photography, we've got coaches, sales, marketing, games development, publishing, and even streaming. One of the esports tournaments that I run at my school is that it's totally set up by the students. I am there. Amazing. As a facilitator, they have their own jobs, they sort out the teams, who's playing who, and we have a qualification round to see who is the best team in our school, and then they go on to the regional finals. So by getting the students involved, and they even go through an interview process like they would do once they've left school and going for a real job, they get that experience of what the process is like.
Yeah, and actually what a fantastic opportunity for them, because in essence it is a bit of work experience more than anything. It's just centered around something a bit different and centered around something that maybe not many parents or schools have that knowledge about and kind of understand where it can lead them. So the fact that you're able to provide that for your students is really great, and I'm assuming they absolutely love it as well.
Yeah, the first they do. The first esports tournament that I set up last September, I had over 100 students turn up to an after-school club.
Yeah, see, that's amazing. That's what you want, that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of, and actually that just goes to show how much of an interest there is in the area and how much of an interest there is in kind of finding out more. So yeah, the more information we can bring to students and to schools and parents really around this sort of subject is really fantastic. So what kinds of opportunities do you know are available locally for students that are interested in gaming and in particular esports?
Now, locally, it does get a bit sort of sketchy because it's usually down to individual schools that sign up to this esports, so it's down to the school initially. But I'm more than happy as part of our esports role at Wrenn School. We do post on social media how well our students are doing through the qualification rounds, the early stages. So you're more than welcome to follow at Wrenn School on Twitter, and also on Instagram as well. And you can follow us all the way through to the finals. And we're going to have a lot more variety this year because we're having 2 esports championships. So there's a lot to follow us with. Twitch is a good place to start off with. Many students would know that. Many older parents will not wonder what I'm going on about. But it's almost like a YouTube website where people stream them playing computer games.
Brilliant. So if we've got students listening that are interested in this sort of thing, it's worth them talking to their kind of computing teachers and the people in school that teach computing and that are maybe the leads of it, and kind of asking them if they can get something like this in their school, really, because so you've essentially said that the best kind of way to do it is to have it as a bit of an extracurricular thing.
Yeah, that's how I've run mine. And if your teachers are unsure, I'm more than happy to share my email address if they want to speak to me, that's fine. Just going back to opportunities, I've put in the chat as well, Digital Schoolhouse, who I've linked up with, who we run one of the esports competitions with. They've created, they've gone out to industry and created what's called a 1-minute mentor video. And there's several on their websites covering the different roles within the gaming industry. So if anybody's interested in a particular avenue, a different pathway, then do go and have a look at that. Also on the British Esports link that I've put in the chat as well, they also have guest speakers from the gaming industry once a month that you can attend as well. Yeah,
that sounds brilliant. And actually, as probably parents in some schools maybe aren't aware, is that this really is a viable option in terms of jobs for students that leave school and are looking to get into this sort of area. Do you have any idea about what sorts of skills or qualifications that esports look for when they're hiring?
They like to see education. That is the main point first. Now, don't get me wrong, just by being an esports person, that you compete in esports, you really have to be in the top 1% to be earning all the millions, shall we say. I've played computer games since 1990 something, and
not quite there yet.
Not there yet still. So, so it's not going to happen to everybody, but just get experience from that. You can volunteer as well. There is 2 companies, Insomnia and Epic, that apply for volunteers each year. And the types of volunteers they look for are networking, so looking at the infrastructure, how to set up or be part of setting up a infrastructure for this type of LAN event. You've also got technical support, so being there to sort out any issues and maintenance throughout the event. You've also got the community teams, so helping run smoothly the activities throughout the day, getting attendees to where they need to be at the right time. And then also you've got the esports admin side of things, so you've got your marketing and also your sales, and just generally being there. And Insomnia and Epic like people who do volunteer, who are interested in games as well, because you also build up the conversation with people and meet like-minded people as well, and it's a great networking tool for that. Sometimes these volunteering roles, expenses are paid as well. And if you really impress them, then that could lead on to paid work in the future.
Amazing. Yeah, so even if it's just for an idea of maybe work experience or having a look at how you can improve your skills in a certain area, then this is a really fantastic opportunity for students to try and get involved in, especially if they are really kind of into gaming and want to kind of look at doing that in the future. So that's really good. Thank you so much for that, Claire. Really appreciate that. One last thing before we move on to a bit of a panel discussion. What advice would you give to students who were interested in the careers in gaming? So obviously you teach a lot of students at school. If one of them came up to you and said, Miss, I want a career in gaming, what would you say to them? What advice or guidance would you give them?
Find a game that you like. Because honestly, you're going to be playing that game for a long time. I'm an avid World of Warcraft player. That was the very first game that I played, and with the amount of expansions and things, it's always changing. Also, if you are going to stream online, make sure that sort of parents are aware and you're keeping yourself safe online. Also, a quote from a parent as well was, don't be a follower, be a trendsetter. So if everybody's playing a particular game, well, okay, so what, let's start up a new avenue, a new channel. People, the more views and things that you get, the more people, and then you end up being, at some point being a trender, so to speak. But also in the realms of, it's not just about playing the computer game, it's about being able to have that conversation with people to talk about, the I think it was you know, how the game is expanding, how would you like to see different changes in it, and being in the forum and just generally helping others out as well.
Yeah.
Another quote that I got from a parent was that if you feel that the game is overtaking you, then try to be, is the game controlling you, or are you in control of the game?
Yeah, and actually I'm glad you brought that up, because obviously we've mentioned kind of parents and the misconceptions that they sometimes have around gaming and careers within gaming. So I wanted to talk to both of you actually, just for kind of 5-10 minutes, about kind of gaming and this new thing that we're seeing, gaming addiction, where a lot of students are perhaps playing too much and are falling into this category of gaming addiction. And I know that this is a big concern for parents, and actually it's a big concern for schools as well, because as much as you want to support your young people into a career that's right for them, you always worry about things like this, particularly as a parent. So Iain or Claire, do either of you have kind of any advice for students around that, or any advice for parents about how to separate that from a child's interest in kind of a career within gaming?
Can I start? I would say parents out there, play the game. Be with them. I've even taught my dad how to, I think it was Mario Kart, I remember.
Amazing. How did you do with that?
It was fun because it brought the family, and you got to have that conversation with parents to share your passion, really, and to get them on board. I've even had parents that have brought games before even telling their children, and waiting for them to go to bed before they play it themselves. So
do you know what? Exact same thing happened to me back on the Game Boy, not even the Advance, it was like the original Game Boy, and I was so little, and my dad used to send me to bed, and he used to have my Pokemon Red game and stay up till, honestly, I don't know what time in the morning. So I think that's been happening ever since games have been invented.
Yeah. Honestly, I do realise, do think that the media have picked up on the sort of a word addiction, and I think it's something that we need to be made aware of, and understand that it does go on. But I can say that I'm addicted to chocolate.
Yeah.
That just means I like to eat chocolate quite frequently. So, but when it's affecting personal, family and social, then yes, that's when that is an addiction. But if you have limit your time, and you do get your 8 hours, because let's face it, no one likes a laggy computer. So if you're not getting your sleep, why should we have a laggy player?
Yeah, exactly. And that's very good advice. Thank you, Claire. Iain, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
I think Claire's pretty much summed it up. I mean, for me, you know, for me, the fine line is between addiction and a passion, and it's showing that interest. It's if that interest becomes overwhelming and starts impacting on everything else, because you should work towards your dreams and you should be invested in them. And I think there's plenty of hype about it, because, like, you know, Claire was just saying about chocolate. Look, I've been scoffing loads of chocolate the entire time we've been on here. No,
I'm pretty sure I'm mostly made of chocolate at this point, so I wouldn't worry. So how do we kind of spread that positive message then about gaming to parents, and particularly about kind of careers within gaming? What do you think we need to be shouting about?
Can I say it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Students are quite often playing games because they don't want anything to do with their parents. They just want to hang out with their mates, and they just want to play games.
Very fair.
If you want less hassle from your parents, show them, involve them, right? Get them involved, get them to buy into it, so that they understand what you're up to, and then they'll leave you alone a lot more. Vice versa, parents, don't be shy about being interested, you know, finding out what your kids are into. It works both ways, right? You don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think the more interest you show as a parent, the more you kind of have that connection with your child, which can be difficult when you're a teenager. And you're right, you just want your mum and dad to leave you alone most of the time. So yeah, any way that you can try and keep that connection from both sides. And if you can bond over gaming, if you can bond over your passion for it, then even better.
I'm more than happy to have a parents team if anybody's interested. Starting October.
I'll be on that, Claire. Yeah. I'll be your number one sign up. All right.
I'm up for taking a thrashing.
Pardon, say that again, Iain?
I'm up for taking a thrashing.
Yeah, well, I would definitely be taking a fraction, because it's definitely not my forte, but it's something I would be interested in learning about. So let's, for the last 10 minutes, have a quick Q&A. So Richard, do we have anybody in the Q&A box that wants to ask any questions to Claire or Iain?
Yeah, we certainly do. There's been a lot of questions around pay and what roles are they paid. Claire, what do you earn?
Right, where do I start, really? It depends on experience, really. As I said, volunteer roles generally, you're just there for the experience, but if you prove yourself and what Iain was saying, have passion and motivation, you'll get to where you want to be. So we generally do look at sort of anything from 30k plus in the sort of esports industry, but again, that just depends how far you go up through the ranks and the different roles that are available. So
that's great. Yeah, brilliant. So Iain, there was a question when you mentioned creating a portfolio earlier. There was a couple of questions around that. How do you go about creating a portfolio?
What subject? It's, you know, an art portfolio. I can tell you about an art portfolio. You'd want to have good examples of drawing, observational drawing and creative drawing, and anything that shows that you understand a little bit about textures. You might be able to throw in some 3D stuff that you've made, or, you know, that would be even better. A games design portfolio, you'd want to be able to show some evidence of storytelling. You'd want to be able to show some evidence of how to break that storytelling down into games mechanics. Evidence that you've considered how a game might play in terms of environment structure, or, you know, things like that. So it's not just about storytelling, right? That's an element. You need to peel it apart and be very good at thinking about all the different strands. You know, what do the users get out of it, etc.
Okay, thank you. Yep. So to both of you, really, how long have you been in gaming careers? So in terms of the esports side for you, Claire, and your role in gaming, how long have you been doing it?
Games, actually, well, playing video games since the 90s, when we had games on floppy disks, but the actual we had to like have four floppy disks for just one game, and it used to pause to allow you to put in the second disc before you can move on.
Showing your age now, Claire.
But it's history. It's getting to know how games have developed as well, which I love. And the actual esports, I would say, for the last 3 years, I'm at the moment where I'm developing what to do with my masters. And I know that University of Northampton, their facilities for esports on their website looks really nice. So that's a possibility that I may be pursuing in the sort of
we've got one now, Claire.
Oh, you have? Oh, right.
We currently have, right?
Fantastic.
So you can have a look at ours as well. I put it in the chat. It's getting validated at the moment. And
right. And that's an MA, is it, Iain?
That's a BA actually in esports.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Are you you were talking about an MA, weren't you?
Yeah, but I can do another BA, that's fine. I like to. It's esports, it's fine.
What about you, Iain? How long have you been doing gaming?
I started in the games industry in 2001. That's when I got my first job. So I did the games industry, and I did sort of the broader thing. So I actually worked, you know, on AAA games and stuff like that. But I worked for simulation companies, and then there's some of those media companies. And then I started teaching full time around 2014.
So a question from James says, how did gaming change your life, Iain?
How did it change my life? Well, it stopped me from working in insurance.
A good change then, Iain.
What about you, Claire?
It was something that I was good at. I wasn't a crafty person, so I couldn't create origami or anything like that. I wasn't the best academic either. So it was something that I could escape with too, and just get involved within the game. But don't get me wrong, I've been there on a sort of sunny day. I've closed all my curtains so I could actually see my computer screen, and then I'd have my mum sort of trying to drag me out of the room to get some vitamin D. So I've been in all scenarios really. So Yeah, even to the point where I used to just close my console down, go and sit out in the garden, but I'd then be sitting there with my Game Boy. So.
Oh, at least you're in the sun, though. That's okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Question from Thomas. What is the lowest price that you would recommend for a gaming PC or laptop that is consistently good?
Good question.
Stumped now. I can't think of a good answer for that because they're so flexible in requirements.
Yeah.
Or where would be a good place for someone to look if they were? Is there like any guides that you've seen that have that sort of information on?
I build my own PCs, right? So what I tend to do is I'll look at a website like scan.co.uk, which sell all the different components, and I'll get an idea of what graphics cards, you know, fit with what motherboards, etc. And I'll try and pick it apart like that according to how much money I've got to spend at the time. But then sometimes Scan as well. They, you know, I'm not like a salesperson for them, but sometimes they put together bundles anyway, so you can buy pre-built ones according to what your requirements are.
Where would you go for that?
Scan.co.uk, right? There's a couple of different websites where they do things like that, where they'll put bundles together. But the benefit about Scan, it's the same kind of lesson that we're talking about throughout all of this, about finding out how something works and then doing it, right? So
do you think that's quite a key skill within kind of games? Do you think to have that skill of wanting to understand how things work and wanting to find out is something that's important? Yeah.
Fundamental skill is problem solving, right?
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong. How's it gone wrong? I've got to find out which bit of this process has gone wrong. Yeah, and what you want to be able to do is pick it apart bit by bit. You don't want to have to bring the entire team round to your computer to say, look, this isn't working. Can anyone help me? You want to be able, first and foremost, to try and figure it all out for yourself. What bit of the process? So it's the same skill set in you know, going on a website, working out what bits fit together with what computers and what you want to get out of it at the end. And then, you know, you kind of piece together this virtual computer in your mind, and then you go and show somebody who's got some more knowledge of it and go, what do you think about this? Do you reckon that'll work? Or you go on a forum and go, look, I want to build this computer. Here's my budget. Here's what I've got in mind. Anybody think of anything better for that money? And then see what other people say.
Okay, great. We've got lots of questions coming in. Sorry, Claire.
I've just posted a link from the British Esports. They actually recommend for the free games that are going to be starting from this year, what type of processor, memory, storage, and graphics. And just to put it into perspective, if you don't have lots of money to go out and sort of custom build your own PC, to put it into a bit of perspective, our school PCs that we've got, the only thing that we had to upgrade was the graphics card, and I think it was just another sort of £50 to £60. So as long as that you've got a good frame rate, you've got the graphics, you know, you can actually play the game, and there is some sort of speed. You don't need to have a really high spec PC.
Bethany asks, what GCSE A-level qualifications would you need to study to then go into games art design programming at university, or is any other games development company? So, question about GCSEs, best GCSE and A-levels to take to get into game art and design or programming.
Well, games art, you know, you want to be able to show some art. So ideally, a passion for art. And if you haven't chosen it as a GCSE subject, then make sure that you do it for your portfolio behind the scenes when you're free at home. Art and the government fundamentals, the maths and the, you know, English. Right? Why do you need maths and English? Well, you certainly need the English because university does involve writing, and you've got to be able to communicate written and verbally in a coherent, fluent way. So that's why that has to be there. The maths less so, but, you know, like I said, we do a foundation year now.
There is also, just coming up with the British Esports, they've just released, it's been approved for a level 3 esports qualification. There is also a GCSE and an introductory qualification that is sort of in the works. It's just going through the approval process, so watch this space.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds really good.
You got asked the question earlier as well, Claire, about coding languages and the best to use. Have you got any advice there? If someone's keen to get into this area and they want to just prove themselves or start playing, what sort of coding language they should use?
Most schools use Python, so I think if you can get to grips with Python, then move on to the C#. I was actually researching this prior to this event, and there are a few websites out there that give the top 10 what industries are looking at, but it all depends with what career path that you're going down. But Python and sort of C# and then a little bit of VB.NET, those would be the programming language that I'll tell my students.
Okay, brilliant. And then one of the things you said earlier, Iain, was about tutorials that are online. Someone said you posted. Yeah, do you want to just remind us of what the link was?
Yeah, there's a good website, right, for art tutorials. This seems great, and it's on YouTube. Sorry, it's Brackeys, 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 and this guy just goes so deep into art and game engines and stuff, and has a really long backlog of different videos about 2D and 3D. It's just great. Brackeys.
Okay, brilliant. What we'll do is we'll review this video, and then when we send the email out, we'll wrap it all up for all the attendees. So we'll put a lot of these links into the email. So anything we've missed today, we can pick back up.
Yeah, sounds brilliant.
I'm just trying to go through it. We've got so many questions. If you all want to have a quick look at the chat as well and the Q&A, in case we've missed anything. There was one around specific a law question. Is there anything, so they talk about Raspberry Pi, is there the equivalent of Raspberry Pi for games development, something like that?
No, that's programming. That's out of my thing. I know that people do make games for Raspberry Pi, and Raspberry Pi has emulators on it, doesn't it? Because people use Raspberry Pis as little...
You've got Pygame that you can use with Python. I've created my own asteroid shooter on the Raspberry Pi. You've also got your Minecraft as well that you can actually program in Python for that. And there is another program that I can't remember off the top of my head that you can preload games onto it for the Raspberry Pi to then edit. But I'll get the link and I'll send it to you in the post out.
Great. We've had a couple of questions about law as well today. What types of computing would you suggest studying for law? And is GCSE computing going to help me with law? Anybody want to take that?
Okay, there's plenty of behind the scenes roles in the games industry, right? There are lawyers who will be interested in copyright, etc., and licensing law. They are there to make sure that games that are published can't be sued for anything, or that the company gets the license correct. So if you're interested in games and law, go for it. Do both. Take the law one, and then just once you've graduated from your law degree, focus on that particular element that will get you towards licensing, etc., licensing and copyright.
I'd say a good sort of law article to follow at the moment is the current Nintendo dispute with America. If you're interested in law and computer science, that's going to be quite a big lawsuit that's I think going to drag out for ages around the controllers of the Nintendo. So if you're interested in law and your computer science, I'll take a look at that as well.
Brilliant. I think that's probably just about it, Kristina.
Lovely, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Iain. You've both given so much really good information. So hopefully everyone watching will gain something from this, and we'll be able to kind of take that away and put it to good use. If there are no more questions, then we'll wrap this up. Thank you everyone for coming, for attending, and look out for the next one, which will be on the Tuesday the 4th of August, so a few weeks till that one, and we'll release details about that shortly.